Hey guys, welcome to the lab where we experiment thoughts and life as we break down and discover our ever growing life as a young adult. Today we have Easy in the lab with us. Hi, Easy.
Hey guys, what is going on?
Well, before we start, do you want to give us a little introduction of who you are? What do you do? What you've been up to these days?
Oh, how okay. I'll go with a quick one. Again, my name is Easy. It's short for Ezekiel, named after one of the prophets in the Bible. But my journey thus far, I'm a personal trainer inside one of our gyms in Anytime Fitness, and I'm also the PT manager for our franchise. So essentially, I run my PT gig, and I also do a little bit of training of the coaches that are in our gyms as well. And that's what I do for work. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Hey, well, before we dive deeper into it, I need to ask you this question. As a personal trainer as well, what does health mean to you?
Huh. It's really hard to sort of ask answer that question because obviously a little bit more about myself. Obviously, I go to church, and health is a holistic approach for me. Is not just physical health. It's not just training well and walking lots. Health has a lot to do with your sleep. It has a lot to do with how you eat and how you train and how you move and how well you can move. Health has a lot to do with your mind and your spirit, how you think and how you process difficult events, challenging events. Um, and the thing that I think about the most when it comes to health is, are people making progress? More than like, is health good right now? I tend to ask the people that I work with, is your health better than 6 months ago? So the general answer that I get is, oh yeah, like I'm feeling better, I'm moving better, and that's already a pretty good start.
Wow. Um, wow.
was
Wow.
was
Okay.
that a lot?
Nah, I mean, I love it. I love it. I know you've been through a lot of phases in your life. You do a lot of things as well. But can you give us a little breakdown of how you became who you are today since maybe day zero?
Okay, cool. Since day zero, so this is we're going fully in. Okay, so day zero, my mom gave birth to this really big little boy in Eastwood Hospital on October 30, 1996. Apparently, I was like really chubby. Um, and my mom ate lots of chocolate when I was going through that process, so that's why my skin's a little bit darker. But no, because my brother's he's a really fair skin, so we don't know what happened. My mom puts it to the
Mm,
chocolate.
maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, so I grew up in church. I went to Christian schools growing up, and I was always really active in church and always quite um, uh, attentive, I would say, in church, and
Mm,
it really grabbed me for a lot of reasons. I think number one, the Jesus that they speak about seemed quite enticing and quite real. And although the cost of discipleship was quite high, it seemed like the gift was greater. So because of that, and because of a lot of the people that I looked up to, Judah Smith was a really big uh, role model for myself when I was in like year 9, year 10. I remember I would imitate how he would speak at times,
mm,
and just like memorize his sermons back to front because I
wow.
really like believed his in the way that he talked about life and goals and ministry. And I remember one thing he said very distinctly. He was being challenged by members or his friends or leaders. I can't remember who specifically, but they said to Judah, Judah, you're a youth pastor. You know, when are you going to get into the big leagues? Like, when are you going to take over your dad's role as senior pastor for the church? And Judah said, what do you mean? Like, youth ministry is the ministry. And that's where I like really believed for myself, like, man, I don't need to be like a big senior pastor for anything. Like, youth pastor is my thing. Like, I love it. I want to go really deep into it. I've got a passion for young people. I got a passion for leadership. And because of that, I guess maybe that one really pivotal moment, as well as like heaps of different church camps where, you know, I really felt the Holy Spirit moving for myself and calling me into ministry, youth ministry in particular. That's where I was like, you know what, let's get stuck into it. So I got stuck into youth ministry. I started serving chairs, stacking the chairs, seeing how many chairs I could lift in one go, as everybody does in church. I started playing on the band, and I had no
Mm.
musical talents. At least I thought so at that point. And shout out to my guy RJ, who was my leader back then, and he was the one who called me to play bass for the worship team. They didn't have a bass player, so I reluctantly said yes, and then that started my journey into playing bass, playing acoustic, playing electric,
Wow.
playing drums, playing keys, singing. Which any of those, everybody knows that I didn't play anything before that or sing. So you know, it's crazy. Like even in that one snippet of my life, like I really view it as a divine providence. You know, obviously, actually, one. Sorry, I just ended up getting a phone call.
Yeah.
Let me put myself on do not disturb. Sorry, guys. Okay, so have you ever heard of this book called The Makings of a Leader? I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. The Makings of a Leader. Have you heard of that book?
Is that from John Maxwell?
No, it's the author's name, last name is Clinton. Um, in this book, it talks about 5 phases of a leader.
Mm.
Really, any Christian, and the first phase is the divine providence, or because you can't really pick how you were born or who you were born to or where you live. It's all providential. It's all like by God's orchestration. And I put a lot of like where I am now, especially in the first phase of my life, to like God's orchestration. You know, God orchestrated my life to be around leaders, be around mentors, be around people who
Mm.
would groom me, put me around influencers like Pastor Judah Smith, and like my pastors, Pastor Paul and Pastor Andrew and RJ, and you know, my friends who are quite pivotal in shaping me. So you know, I do put a lot of it to like divine providence, and also then on my side, like partnering with that divine providence is then the second phase, which is like exploring, and exploring different talents, different opportunities, experiences. And the opportunity that presented itself to myself was like, hey, join the band and uh, take care of these young high school kids. And I was like, yeah, I'm really keen.
Mm.
And starting that ministry in like year 9, year 10, and then by the time I got into like mid uni age, so I was like second, third year uni, I was called into essentially to direct the youth group. So it's
Mm.
like a yeah. So I was the youth director for 2 years, and so I was leading teams of not PTs, teams of cell leaders and youth leaders, and they would lead their youth little youth guys. So
Mm.
um, stepping into that role, obviously, I really enjoyed it. I loved leading teams. I loved preaching. I loved engaging with young people. I loved crying with these kids. Oftentimes, these guys would come to me and just bawl out all of their problems, and I said,
Mm.
"Let me pray for you." And it was really cool, a really great experience. And then again, so I really enjoyed that experience. I really like felt like it was such a big calling for my life. And
Mm.
then like a really quick turn in events, just as I was getting really great at it, for whatever reason, pastors decided to shift the leadership team and move myself into a productions worship role, and bring in maybe slightly older, wiser guys to lead the next gen crew. So um, both myself and my other director, who was leading, I was leading youth, and the other director was leading the young adults or the uni crew. Both of us were phased out and moved into different parts of the ministry. And that left a really big hole, because in my life at least, because my identity, and I didn't realize this, but it was like a 7-year buildup of my whole identity being like Easy, the youth pastor, and that's it.
Mm.
And so as soon as I stepped out, I was like, who am I? Like, who is
Mm.
Easy? And it led me to like really question church, question calling, and question like everything about Christianity, because I felt like being in a youth pastor bubble, you you just you don't have time to question your faith. You just go with it and you just
Yeah.
build ministry and build the church. And so I had like a 2 years of questioning. The end of 2019 was the roughly the end of my youth ministry, and
Mm.
entering into a different phase of life, which is still like phase two out of the five of the makings of a leader, which is still that exploring phase. And this time it led me to entrepreneurship uh, in the field that I studied, which is exercise physio.
Mm.
So coming into it, I excelled really well in the PT scene. I broke records in terms of like our company. They're like, we've never seen PTs scale business this quickly.
Wow.
um I've never seen anybody like build so fast. Like, you're crazy, bro. And I said, yeah, like I've never had really any experience building business. It's my first business. It's my first time like attracting my own client base. It's my first time selling. It's my first time like doing all this. But for me, I just saw the opportunity, and I said, God gave me this, and I'm going to do my very best. And it sort of unleashed the talents that were hidden inside.
Yeah.
And then management saw this, and obviously, like a really key leadership principle is that you start with the end in mind, or you begin with the end in mind. And the end for leadership is succession. So the PT director for our franchise from week zero asked me, "Easy, are you okay if you become the PT manager uh, in our gyms down the line?" And I said,
Wow.
"Yeah, that'd be cool, but let me just like build my business and see if I can actually do it successfully." But he already
Mm.
had that in his mind. And then, like fast track from what is it? I started in August 2020 to now, 2022 February. I was just promoted this week into the
Wow.
full-time personal manager role for our franchise. So regional New South Wales city, New South Wales, Sydney, and Melbourne as well. So now I
Damn.
manage. Yeah, it's come full circle, but like, you know, I feel like a lot of these opportunities are like providential or divine appointments. And
Yeah.
it's not like to boost my ego, but sort of how God was moving despite me feeling like called for ministry.
Yeah.
God had like a funny way of like, let's shift easy out of this and let him realize the shell of who he was,
Yeah.
and then let him find his real foundation in Christ. So like now coming into like 2022, I realized like my main sort of focus, not really to build business. It's not really to um, do well in my PT manager job, although both of those are important. But the main calling I feel like for myself, still being in that explorative phase. And this is another like sort of key principle that I live by, is like God gives, or God calls, three different visions in our
Yeah.
life. First and the most superficial is like directional vision, which is, what's your direction career wise? What's your direction with your health? Are you called to be an engineer or a doctor? And that's sort of the most superficial, logical thing that people can figure out. Then, like one level deeper that I think about. Well, actually, let me explain that a little bit more. The first level, for myself at least, I initially thought it was only youth ministry, and it was only ever going to be youth ministry. And then I sort of in my learning, I realized I'm not going to close it off to one direction, but I'm going to learn the skill sets for ministry through entrepreneurship, through business, through leadership and management. Um, so that's the first one. The second one is a distinctive vision. So, like God says in Joshua, to the people of Israel through Joshua, he says, um, "Go therefore and consecrate yourselves before we enter the land and cross the sea." And they all consecrated themselves. Sorry, after they crossed the sea. And the distinctiveness, consecration, is that definition of being set apart. That when people look at you, they see that you're not just different, but distinct. You're a certain kind
Mm.
of individual. You're not just different for the sake of being different. You're distinct with key characteristics of a mature Christian. And that's like one level deeper than just knowing what your directional vision is.
Yeah.
Then the second stage is like knowing who like you ought to be and who you ought to and what you ought to live by, the values and the convictions you live by. And then number three,
Mm.
the deepest one, and the one that I think forms the foundation of the two visions above, is the dynamic vision, which essentially to me it means the dynamic relationship with God. And God becomes the foundation of our distinctiveness, and God becomes a dynamic distinction of our directedness in life. So my key focus, again coming back to what I was saying, is like for myself is like, how can I continually to realign my direction, my distinctiveness, and my dynamic relationship with God every single day. And that's sort of where I am today.
Wow. Damn, easy. That was like a biography of Easy. Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations for your promotion. That's
Thank you.
amazing. Wow. Like I do remember last time when we first met in the gym, we were like every short conversations that we would have was always so deep. And I
Yeah.
can just feel like, oh, there's so much wisdom in this man. Like I just need to really get to know this person because it's not just personal training that you've done. But when we did talk in the gym, we did talk about like spiritual aspects and like Christianity, and it was pretty cool because
Yeah.
at the last conversation that I do remember and recall um was like something along the lines where we both were Christians, and like I was studying in like Morning College to do a little bit of theology, and then you told me you were like you served as a youth minister as well, and then now you're trying to
Mm.
find your way through as a personal trainer. And it was really cool because we both clicked along the lines where maybe God is calling like us, our generation, to really not just be in the Christian bubbles, but to be able to lead people and be like disciples inside of the world, which is not the easiest form to be in. But it's so great to see you being able to see you be firm inside of where you are and being able to be promoted and being able to use your skills within your aspects of field, your field of people, like training PTs as well, coaching them to become more leader people, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Wow.
that. Like I definitely uh coming into PT, I was like really scared, like just financially, obviously, like there's no security in business, no security and especially soul trading. So like I was really like just money focused and just getting the financial stability. But as I journeyed and as God sort of developed that financial stability in my business, I then came to realize there's a deeper purpose, obviously, to business than making money. It's discipleship ministry. It's a marketplace ministry. And so then as soon as I clicked that, like I started to meet really like-minded people like yourself. um heaps and heaps, like the amount of like friendships I've made just talking about ministry is really cool. And
Mm.
you're definitely one of them. Like just every time we see each other, we talk about like ministry and the struggle of yeah, the struggle of being it's the struggle against the traditional church model, really,
Yeah.
is like, especially being a pastor's kid, the invisible force to just be a minister
Yeah.
formally. I see that. But I think now everybody has the opportunity to be a minister in their own right. And if they do want to be a pastor, then that's great. But like if they don't, there's always like a calling in the marketplace, which I think is really respectable.
Mm.
I've always looked up to people who didn't want to just be confined to the the four walls, and it's important. There is a place for leadership in the four walls, and there is a place for leadership outside, and we need
Mm.
both.
Yeah.
I feel like later in life, I probably will be back in church ministry.
Yeah.
Um, but at least for now, in my season or my next few seasons, I'll be in the marketplace.
Yeah. Wow. Like, were there any times where there was conflicts between people or like businesses because you believe in Christianity and because of religious matters?
Um, yes. So there's a lot like the fitness industry in general is like it's non-corporate, right?
Yeah.
Corporate is highly professional. Corporate is like it's meetings, it's getting the work done, and blah blah blah. Gym is that, but it's more so like it's fun, it's sales, it's a little bit like left field. It's a little bit more liberal in that sense as a business. It's a little more laid back, like stuff wear activewear, and we're pretty chill. We wear Nikes to work. Um, and we wear cool gear, and it's flexible hours. Um, and I'm just trying to paint the picture of like the context of the fitness industry. It's really cutthroat. It's a high churn rate, like a lot of people going in and out. A lot of people see gyms as sort of just like a stepping stone or like a um, a pathway into their real career or whatever. Like you don't see
Mm.
people staying ultra long term. And if they are staying ultra long term, they probably own the business. They're probably the gym owner or the general manager. Like they've been in the game a long time. Um, Whereas the normal staff, they're in and out. Like every 6 months, I see a new salesperson. Every 6 months, there's a new PT. It's
Yeah.
nothing new under the sun. But I think because of this, because of what's happened in the fitness industry, there's a lot more laxity around like sort of the moral purity and the moral social aspects of like work functions and people getting like really lit,
Mm.
and just like I say that while I'm wearing the Anytime Fitness shirt. It's not making us look great, but like sort of the nature of the fitness industry as a whole, not just Anytime, just everybody. In fact, I think we're probably the most professional crew out there, and if we're like this, like I can only imagine, UFC gyms and other gyms. Yeah, like it's crazy. So like one of the biggest like I guess conflicts is even today, I was talking to one of my PTs, and he left the whole like clubbing scene. He was like almost to the point of like gang leader in New York City when it comes to the scene. And it was actually really funny because his conversion story, uh, it was because of his PT that he went to church in Hillsong, in New York
Mm.
City, and that was how he was radically converted, because of his PT. And then he left everything. He sold all his businesses, and then he came to Australia to study theology.
Wow.
And he came to Hillsong College to study his bachelor's in theology, and then went to Alpha Crucis after to keep studying. And I recently hired him, so he's 2 weeks in, and
Wow.
there's a lot of people sort of already like questioning, like, why is Mike always talking to everybody in the gym about his testimony or like his Christian walk or his like his story? Um, he's supposed to be focused on the job or focused on PT, blah blah blah. And it's like you can't stop a man who's been so radically changed, who was in so entrenched into sort of the the just the craziness of the world. And obviously
Mm.
New York, like being absolutely crazy already in that scene, like clubbing, like everything. Yeah, everything that goes down in the underworld. Mike can talk about it more. But basically Mike said like he's gonna have to take a stand for it. Like he wants to do business and he also wants to do ministry. He doesn't want it to
Mm.
be separate. Likewise for myself, like the the challenge that I asked myself when I first started is, am I going to tell people that I go to church
Yeah.
or not? Am I going to talk about my faith or not? And so most of my clients know that of my faith, know of my church commitments, know a little bit more um, about the Christian faith because because I PT'd them.
Mm.
One of my clients, James, we train twice a week, and pretty much we end up talking about church and Christianity every week. He grew up Anglican and now is sort of, I wouldn't say atheist, but agnostic. um, and sort of he believes in a greater God, but I'm not sure where Christianity stands in that. And so anyway, we talk a lot about it all the time, and it's really great conversations. And one of the things I'm praying for that he does come to church and gets like that, that just it flicks the switch and gets him over the line.
Mm.
But yeah, yeah,
Wow.
there is a lot of conflict within the church values, and like in particular, just the secular values and secular companies. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about making sure the business stays afloat.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just the nature of business.
Wow. Well, because you keep mentioning about business and as you mentioned, entrepreneurship. And when it comes to like PT and like fitness, what exactly does it look like to be a PT manager or a life as a PT? Because I know that
Okay.
if you're a personal trainer, like you would train a person, and especially I think normal people would know that, oh, you train people for a specific hour, give them instructions upon what to eat and like healthy diet stuff. But what exactly would it mean to be a personal trainer?
All right. Um, that's an interesting question. I think depending on the role and the structure of the organization, whether you're an employee or you're a subcontractor, you have a lot to like define. If you come in as an employee, they define your space, they define your task list, they define how you act. Um, as a personal trainer, when I came in as a subcontractor, so I was essentially running my own business.
Mm,
I were given like a few things to sort of implement in terms of like, hey, use this member induction program, the same one that we ran through, when we first met at the gym. Like I ran you through those the complimentary sessions.
mm,
I ran that, and I was also instructed, hey, like as part of your business, run group training. So I started running group training. Um, and other than that, like really being a subcontractor essentially means like you're running your own business in the gym. And
mm,
to me, what being a personal trainer is, other than like training people in the business sense, is you're essentially running your business. You're running a business, and the product is personal training.
mm,
So the whole concept of like what is being a personal trainer. A lot of people think it's like just training people for 1 hour and counting the reps and telling them your squat looks bad, fix it like this. And that's not really, that's probably like 10-20% of personal training.
mm,
And the reason I say it's 10-20% is because anyone can do that. Like
mm.
even people in the gym without a certification train with their mates, and
Yeah,
they say, hey, you got to squat lower. That was your fifth rep, do five more. Like anyone can do it. But what makes a personal trainer great is if they have the business acumen and the understanding that, like, one, they need to know how to sell. Two, they need to know, so they need to know like their product and brand design. That's number one. Number two, then they need to know how to sell and do the marketing and lead generation. And then so number two is just marketing and lead generation. Three is the sales process. Four is the product deliverance. And there's three others, including like admin, leadership management of the business,
mm,
management systems, and financial, the back end financial management. And all of these
yeah,
different things is like what PTs should strive to know,
yeah,
but aren't given the coaching and education to know it, and
yeah.
to know it well, and to successfully implement it well. And that's where I step in. Like as a PT manager, most guys who pass the interview process are like, at best, you know, okay PTs. Um, but that's only 20% of it. Most PTs fail. And the statistic is like 70% of PTs leave the industry in the first year. So by the end of 6 months of the first year, it's because they
Mm,
don't know how to run a business. They had no
mm,
idea they had to sell clients, and they had to market to those prospective clients to get people paying them to get money to stay
mm.
as a PT. They're just like, oh, people are just going to come into PT with me. That's not the case. It's 80% running a business, 20% being a really great coach.
Wow. I definitely think that it's not just personal training and fitness that runs that structure. Definitely feel like whatever field you might be in, having the aspects of business and understanding what it means to actually be a leader really plays a big role because like you said, like even in the music industry or creative industry, it's not just about how well you do your music. Like definitely if you do have good music skills and if your music sells, then that's great, but it's about how you actually sell your own music, how you brand yourself, just like you said. But there's not a lot of people actually teaching you that. Although you might be able to attend a music business or a business course, there's not a lot of people who would incorporate how to use your passion with that business skills. And so I think that's really
Mm,
amazing when you said that's when you step in because you know what you're capable of and you know what your role is. And it's so amazing because I think I see a lot of PTs going in and out when I was in like fitness first and then moved to anytime. You would always see that like PT, like name label person peoples on the wall change every now and then. And it's like, it
yeah,
makes me question, like, why would those people change? Why would they not just leave, like stay, or do they go to a different branch? Or,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's actually a really good thought. And I've been dissecting it a little bit more. I think at the end of the day, people need food on the table, right? Like people need to pay their
Mm,
bills and they've got a lifestyle that they want to live. And I've recently read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he's got a really interesting take about money. He says, and life actually, and he says that oftentimes um, people go around getting smashed by the waves of life without knowing how to position themselves because of those waves. Like,
mm,
obviously, if the wave's too big, go to a smaller beach. Or if you're a great surfer, but there's no waves, find a bigger beach.
mm,
Like, a lot of times people don't learn, like, oftentimes life will push you around gently through experiences, through your emotions. And you need to learn to, like, people, well, PTs in specifically need to learn to feel and learn from their mistakes, learn from challenge, and
mm,
rise above that and understand that. And a lot of PTs just, they get burnt out, they get hurt from the rejection, because obviously sales, there's more rejections than people saying yes.
yep.
And so if you're in an environment where you're constantly getting said no to, you feel bad about yourself, your ego goes down unless you learn from it. If life is saying to you, you're getting rejected a lot, most people's reactions are, I quit, which is why 70% of PTs quit. But if you actually distill that, their solution to life is to check out of life, which is not a solution. The real solution is get better,
Mm,
skill yourself. If you don't know how to do 2 plus 2, you'll find out through a book. You'll find out through your mom. Like, you go
mm,
to a teacher, go somebody wiser than you. And like, a lot of times people don't learn from the waves of life. Life kind of just happens to them and they just react without thinking and taking stock. And like, my main thing as a PT coach and mentor is like, yeah, no matter what, like, even with a great educational based system, no matter how much I teach, like, it's at the end of the day up to them to like drink the water, right?
mm,
Even if I teach them the best like business acumen and everything that they'll need to grow a six-figure PT business within 4 weeks, 20% are going to actually do it. Even less. Like, Gary V is really big on giving out all your best content, all your best ideas out for free, because he genuinely believes 99% of people won't do it.
mm,
99.9% of people won't do it. And sure, it's hyperbole, but I think there's an air of truth in it, where more people are in love with the idea of PT than it is about actually being a PT, which is like
mm,
constantly learning, developing and investing in yourself, understanding things that you've never explored before, like entrepreneurship, financial management, spreadsheets, income taxes, everything like that. Like, most people, when they realize that, they quit, they leave, but they want to
mm,
be an employee instead, which is like, that's great. Like, if you realize that entrepreneurship is not for you, then become an employee, and that's not a bad thing at all. But like a lot of people, I guess, maybe come in with the love of the idea of PT, and
Yep,
they leave
yep.
really hurt because when they find out what it is, they're like, oh, it's not for me.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, that's very true. Well, would you say, because like when you worded it out, branding yourself, being able to sell yourself, marketing yourself, it all comes down to you need to know what you are, what you sell, and really hone into what you're gonna do. But there are so many steps in those things. First of all, you need to know who you are. Second of all, how are you gonna brand yourself? Who is your target audience? And then after you've defined all of those stuff, you need to actually do the sales and then market and then analyze spreadsheets and then do it all over again. But when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, you're the one man show. But how do you tend to manage all of those things, like admin stuff, as well as doing the personal training? Because isn't it like
Oh,
a lot of things to do
yeah.
all at once? Time management for sure, building a better habit for sure. But at the end of the day, how do you actually cater yourself to fit everything in one day?
Yeah, I think there's a few different answers I have for that actually. Number one is the key perspective that undergirds everything that I will say after this is that the key perspective is you have to allow yourself to fail and fail really early, fail as quick as you possibly can, fail all the time, and just look like an absolute failure and
Mm,
learn as quickly as you can. No one ever became successful 100% of the time.
mm,
Thomas Edison, famous inventor, after 10,000 tries of making some invention, I think it was the light bulb. I could be wrong. And his quote literally was, I found 10,000 reasons how not to do it. And like,
mm.
wow, it's actually just being okay to fail. That's the
Yep.
first thing. Because like out of the 1 million things we just said about sales, marketing, prospecting, admin, spreadsheets, time management, blah, 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 you're not going to get everything right. And you probably won't for the first year. And that's fine, you know?
Mm,
But then what's the next thing? So, okay, we've got to fail early. We've got to fail often. We've got to fail fast and learn fast. So that's the first thing. Then number two, um, so just to reiterate the question, I'm losing myself. It's how do I balance all of this, right?
yep, yep.
Okay, great. Um, what really helped me is to simplify it and keep it really simple. So whether it's PT or whether it's wanting to run a 5K, which is one of my goals, or whether it's wanting to put on 5 kilos of lean mass, or whether it's like I want to be a really cool musicpreneur and a music influencer on TikTok or whatever it is. Like whatever the goal is, it has to be as simple as possible. So for myself, like when I first started PT, I said, like more things are gonna go wrong than right. And I'm happy with
Mm,
that. I'm okay with that. I'm already like surrendered that to God. More things are gonna go wrong than go right. But if there's one thing that needs to do well, what is it in this business? Well, I just need to get clients. That's my 100% focus right now. So I don't care if my admin's bad. I don't care if my training's bad. I don't care if anything else is bad. As long as I can sell, I know that once I sell it and get people on, I can improve everything else. So what did I
mm.
do? For my first week I started, I had zero clients, zero sessions, zero PT. By the end of my fourth week, I had 30 sessions a week, 30.
Damn.
And let me tell you like what impact that is. Up to this day in our PT team, in our franchise, other than our directors, so the people who hired me, no one has yet to hit 20 sessions a week consistently. So I did it in my first 4 weeks and I hit
Wow.
30. Uh, Then I got to my 12th week and I did 50 sessions just for fun. I just want to see how many sessions I could do. If
Oh
I
my
just woke up,
goodness.
went to work, go home and sleep, and then do the same thing for 6 days, how many sessions can I do? And the answer was 50.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
if you look at my calendar, I woke up at 5 or 4:45. I was out by 5:30, training my first client at 6. Boom, 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 back
Wow.
to back, back to back. 1 hour lunch break, a 2 hour workout break, 1 hour to read. All of that is dispersed throughout the day. But then, other than taking 4 hours out of my day to eat, work out, and read a book for 1 hour, uh, I would be training clients. And as soon as I finished training my clients, I finished at 6, 7, 8, 8:30. Go home, quickly have dinner, shower, go to bed. That's it. That's all I
Wow.
did for like 6 months. Get clients
Wow.
and train clients. So I just made it really simple. And all I did in my on my drives to work, if my goal and my objective is to get clients, I'd be reading books on sales. I'm listening to podcasts on sales. I'm watching YouTube videos in the car on the drive to work, specifically about different sales tactics, different closes that I can use, different phrases I can utilize at the end of the sale, uh, different objection handling tools. I just fully focus on the nitty gritty, just on one thing, which is get me clients. Like, how can I get clients?
Wow.
Um, yeah. So
Wow.
that's in terms of like the business strategy. It was just like, yeah, I knew I had a great product. I knew that, and the product is the actual PT itself, not the training. It's the actual, you're selling yourself. And I knew that like I was like good enough to get across the line, because like I tried it out in youth ministry and people seem to like me. So I said, if I could do it in church ministry, which is like the most polarizing thing because it's attached to religion, then I can do it in a business. So
Yeah.
like all I did was just focus on attracting people in, getting them sold on the product, and just get them in. And
Wow.
to go even deeper, there's this book called it's on my bookshelf. It's called The Lean Startup. The
Mm.
Lean Startup. This it's essentially a business philosophy that started in IT, and at the moment, it's only really widely utilized in the IT departments in every company. And
Yeah.
you would hear two different strategies utilized in the IT teams, which is number one is agile, and number two is Scrum. So most IT teams these days use agile or Scrum, and it's essentially a framework of how to manage manage people and manage teams, how to manage your time, how to manage priorities, and how to build a business from an idea to like a successful business. And it's just essentially generating um I could go really deep into it, probably not, but uh the main concept from the lean startup is essentially just keep it as small as possible, as simple as possible, focus on one thing and really nail that out of the park. um and they've got like different time management strategies that they utilize. um if I tend to keep it simple like this. um I think of a pyramid, like at the very top of the pyramid is your goals, and there's your goals at the very top. So you define like what's your vision, what's your trajectory, and that's
Mm.
like the very pinnacle of the pyramid. Then one under that, underneath your vision, what underpins the vision, the second like brick of that pyramid, if you will, one level down from the top, is your values.
Mm.
What do you value? What do your actions show that you value? Do you value family? Do you value integrity? Do you value honesty, fun, uh honesty, communication, love? Whatever you want to value, just define your values. And
Mm.
then one level underneath that is, then in the light of my trajectory or my vision, let's say I want to build a PT business that's really successful, that creates transformations in people's health and lives. Then my values, it doesn't have to necessarily be business values, but my personal values, I believe in excellence in service. I believe in always giving it a go. I believe in the power of hope and peace, and believing in people. Um, and I believe in integrity. What I say is what I do, and what I do is what I say. Um, and there's probably a few other things that I value, but like I wrote out what my values are. And then after that, I defined one level underneath that pyramid is the priorities, meaning what actionable things do I
Mm.
prioritize and that become like ultra non-negotiable. So for me, it was talking to people, reading about sales books, practicing my sales and role playing, and having a review system. So
Mm.
once I define my actionable items or my priorities, one level underneath that is then scheduling. So everything that I say I believe and I value in and I defined as my priority, I put it into my schedule and I live off my schedule. And if I don't, and then like I try and always live off the schedule. The reason I do that is because it helps me to audit my time. It helps me
Mm.
to put value on your time. Because, like, let's say, for example, if you don't have a financial strategy, if you don't know where your money is going, it's going to be gone, right? And likewise with your time, time is your most valuable, most scarce resource. If you don't know where it's going, that's probably not valuable to you.
Mm.
If anybody can take any chunk of your time, if any guy or girl can just ask you out, now talking about relationships, but like any guy or girl can ask you out, is your time really important? Uh, you know, and the answer should always be yes, it's really important because I've got visions, I've got values, I've got priorities. But most
Mm.
people don't. Most people say they have that, but they don't live off that. And so living off the schedule for me is not just ritualistic, but it's the principle of like valuing your time and being able to reflect and review at the end of the week. Oh, did I actually spend my time? Well, no, every time I woke up this week, I spent 3 hours on TikTok. Like that's the kind of
Mm.
like, that's why I live off the schedule. So I can review it.
Yeah.
And the last, the base of the pyramid is integrity. You need to live with integrity on your calendar, live
Yeah.
with integrity to execute those items, the priorities on the calendar,
Wow.
live with integrity to live by your values, not just say it, but like your actions define your values. And then also live it with integrity to pursue your calling in light of the circumstance, even despite your circumstance. And that like pyramid, that triangle was my like keep it simple version of
Yeah.
balancing my time. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, you have a lot of things that you do at the moment. Like you vlog, you lead worship, you're a personal trainer, you manage PTs as well. Sometimes you play drums as well. And I'm sure you have life beyond those things as well. But would you say you would still, because if you have a definite goal that you want to do, say selling, like bringing in clients, like you said, your first goal was to have as much clients as you wanted and needed. But when you have that one goal, you only focus on that one thing. But what do you do when there are other things like life that you want to do, vlogs or like church, or you want to
Mm.
do, but would you keep them aside and still focus on what you actually need to do and later come back to that and do whatever you want to do? Or
Yeah,
would you, yeah.
that's a really good question, and that's like honestly, the whole of last year, the answer evaded me like big time, and this really pivotal time. And actually, let me give you a picture of what it is. It's like many times I'd be so frustrated that I didn't work out, and because I didn't work out, I had to work out on times that I had allocated for other stuff. And because of that, I was late for other things, and because of that, I didn't get to come to other stuff. So it's just like this whole cascading effect, and just things weren't getting done. I ended up having to decline a worship roster certain times. I ended up like missing life groups at certain times because of work, because I didn't schedule properly, and like everything just was going down south in terms of like my time management. I was like barely
Wow.
holding everything together. Um, I was still trying to make as much money as I could, just but now obviously being paid a manager's salary, the pay is less than what I'd be getting if I was just to run my PT business. So I
Mm.
did take a pay cut, like a really big pay cut, to do management. And so like I was just trying to figure out like how can I just keep the ship tight? How can I keep everything together? And I talked to my mentor Andrew, and in that time I was just like really like, oh my god, how do I keep everything together? And he said this really one amazing thing to me that like fully blew my mindset out of the water. And it took me like a solid like 3 months to like get where he's coming at. But he told me, he said, easy, I uh, like I'm one of your pastors at church. I have two kids, right? So obviously the parent and they're young kids. Like one was just born like a few months ago. The other one, the older one, was born like 2 years before. So they're super young kids. They're probably still not getting great sleep. So, Andrew was saying like he's a pastor. He's got kids. Obviously getting paid a pastor salary, you get paid like minimum wage.
Mm.
Uh, but he came from the route of business and entrepreneurship. So there was times where he was like his business was making like big money, and he's one of the best entrepreneurs. He got like heaps of awards for like entrepreneurship awards, like the fastest young grower, young starters in entrepreneurship. Like he got all of those like quite prestigious like Australia based awards, and he left that whole entrepreneurship life to become a full-time minister. And he was telling me after all of his experience, he said, you know what, Easy, and this is like, again, this is where I got this saying from when earlier in the podcast I said it, is more things in life will go wrong than will go right. The
Mm.
wisdom is knowing which one you want to go right.
Mm.
So for him, it's three things. Ministry needs to be right. Two, he needs to be a great husband. And three, he wants to raise great kids. Everything else can go wrong. So he was willing to sacrifice his health, his training, his running, his eating, his car, his house. I don't know, like just whatever, like everything else that you could have as like your minor priorities. He was willing for that stuff to go wrong if he knew that his ministry went well, his wedding, uh, his partnership went well, and his kids, his parenting went well. And that's when I realized,
Wow.
like, oh, like I've been trying to make everything right when it's impossible. If you wanted, if you could get everything right, it'll take you an infinite amount of time, because
Yeah.
perfection seeks, you cannot achieve perfection without infinity, right? Like God is the
Mm.
definition of perfection, and he's a being infinite in time.
Yeah.
And for us as finite beings, perfection is an illusion, and it's, I think, many times perfection is a carrot on a stick that the devil gives to us that distracts us from our real purpose. A lot of times perfection distracts us from the real goal, which is just keep it simple, keep a few things right, everything else can go wrong. Not to say like you start eating macas every day and fully let go of yourself, but like there's just obviously certain things that you have to be a little bit looser on,
Yeah.
and just a few things that you need to be really tight on. So, like for myself, the three things, I actually don't know how many things off the top of my head, but number one is my walk with God. So I've made it a thing that I'm not only going to do devotions every day, but I do it with the boys every day. So we're doing this 365-day or a whole 1 year reading Bible reading plan on the YouVersion Bible app, and it's by
Oh.
these guys called the Bible Project. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've seen their videos, but they have their 365 Bible plan
Wow.
on the YouVersion app, and so we've just been doing it. And they're like, and one of the guys was saying, "Hey guys, most New Year's resolutions finish or like end by like 90% of them end by Valentine's Day. We're so close. Imagine if we get to Valentine's Day and we're still going consistently." I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get there.
Oh yeah.
But
Wow.
that's like one of the things that I'm focusing on. Number two that needs to go right is the PT management, and then number three would just be the people that I have in contact with at the moment, like my PT business. I want to make sure that if they're with me, then I do right by them and train them well. Talia, my girlfriend, um, my ministry, uh, sorry, the worship ministry that I'm part of at church, and everything else can kind of like chill out. Like if I don't get my 5K running goal by 6 months, that's fine. I'll make it 7. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Wow, easy. Man, you make it sound so easy though, man.
Nah, nah, no way. Um,
Wow.
that's a lot to take in, to be honest. But like, I
Yeah.
guess I don't know. it has been 25 years in the making, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
I didn't sort of just like end up like this. It's sort of been on this one trajectory and I just keep to it and just sort of end up finding advice that'll help me stay on track with the trajectory and keep going.
Wow.
It takes time to build it. Um, but obviously, if you keep it simple, keep it clear, keep it concise and direct, and you know where you're going, um, you'll get there.
Hey, that's so good. Well, you've been reading one book every week since 2022,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
made you want to do that? And what kind of genres are you specifically targeting?
Wow, that's cool. You got some really great questions. You're a really great interviewer.
Thank you.
What inspired me was one of our sister churches in Perth, FCC. Their youth pastor, Pastor John at the time, was very pivotal in my development as a youth director. And one of the really cool habits that he had was reading one book a week. And I
Mm.
asked him, why do you do that? And he, along with a lot of my other leaders, said the same thing and echoed the same messages. Most people write one or two books in their life. Now everybody writes a book every few years, right? But like, like most people release one or two really great books in their lifetime. And if that's the case, what do they put in the book? They usually put their 40, 50, 60 years of their wisdom into a one concise book.
Mm.
And if you read one book a year for or one book a week for 52 weeks, and on average it's 10 years of wisdom, you've gained 520 years of wisdom per year. And then
Wow.
I was like, wow, so if I do that for 10 years straight, does that mean I gain 5,000 years of wisdom? so, so, and obviously no, but I picked up the habit because I think it's important to always be learning and always be
Mhm.
growing. My pastor at one point thought I was really insane, and he said this, and I took it to heart. I think it's important. He said, "Why?" And he said it exactly like this: "Why do you waste your time reading 52 books in 52 weeks when you should really spend your whole year being mastered by the 56 books in the Bible?" I think it's
Mm.
56. I actually can't remember, but that was the dichotomy. It's like, how much do we value earthly wisdom more than being mastered by the word?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of like, now I'm like, oh well, I'll do both. so so I'll read
Wow.
the Bible, and I invest as much time as well into readings. So
Wow.
at the moment, I've got my bookshelf over on this side. I've read those books, and the books on this side on my table. I've got maybe 30 books on that table at the moment right now, of books that I need to read. I just
Wow.
bought them over the last month or so, but I'll just read them really quickly. But the sort of the genres, they're all like self-help or like memoirs,
Mm.
things that I want to learn. So I've got leadership books. I've got uh, books about learning. So like Jim Quick's book on limitless and the ideas of like how can you learn fast.
Wow.
He grew up with like a mental disability, a learning disability, and funnily enough, he became a teacher of learning fast despite his
Wow.
disability. So which is really cool. There's books about finances. Obviously, finance is really important. We need to learn how to steward that well. Um, there's books about like management, the Prosser MBA. There's one by Ray
Mm.
Dalio called Principles. Brene Brown is a really popular author in America. I'm not sure if you've heard, but
Yeah.
she's an Anglican. Well, she is Anglican, and she's also like a really big leadership thought leader. And I've got her book called Dare to Lead.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, so
I've
that
heard of
one,
that. Yeah.
it's cool. I've been listening to her podcast, Dare to Lead
Podcast.
podcast.
Hey.
She interviewed Barack Obama,
Oh, did
which led
she?
me, yeah. So
Damn.
I definitely recommend.
Wow.
That episode was amazing, and that led me to buy Barack Obama's book, the Promised Land, which is what I'm currently reading.
Mm.
So
Wow.
I'd say like 99% of my books were self-help
Mm.
and like knowledge books. And then I recently picked up this book. And I've just read it. It's called, oh, you can't see it.
The
It's
Nike one. You have to
oh
put it
well,
right in front of your
the
face.
Nike one.
Maybe because of the
There's
mic.
no work.
But read it to
But
us.
it's called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the founder of Nike.
Mm.
And it's essentially a memoir of how he started business. And after reading it, I at first it was a big struggle because like I like to read books fast. I like to just, you know, eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Wow.
Um, and with memoirs, you can't. The thing is, you have to go slow to go fast. Like you have to
Mm.
really slow, like read it slowly. Like when somebody talks fast, like me, you probably don't get me as well as if I was to talk slower and chiller,
Nah.
and like sort of the same concept with the book is you got to read memoirs slow. So I'm actually reading memoirs at nighttime. I'm purely reading like memoirs and like life story based books at night. Because the added benefit for me is like it helps me to calm my mind down. I've got like an addictive personality when it comes to like learning. The dopamine hits, and so I don't sleep as well. So I find these books help me to chill out and de-stress. And then in the
Damn.
morning and during the day, I read like books that are like more educational. So this book that I'm reading at the moment is called Don't Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Um,
Ooh.
it was a book recommended by my Cairo. One of my favorite interview questions or questions just I like to ask everybody is if there's one book that you'd recommend to, or your most recommended book, what would it be and why? And so my Cairo, on the very last day of him being a Cairo, because he sold his business and he's now going to live in Dubai, but he sold his
Wow.
business. And I asked him, because it's the last time we are going to meet, I said, what's your book? And he said, this book, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Um, yeah. So I got that question actually from Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
Ooh, Tim Ferriss. Wow.
If you look up Tim Ferriss's book called Tribe of Mentors, he actually asked the same 11 questions to everybody that he interviews in the book, The Tribe of Mentors. I think he's got like 100 or 400 people that he's interviewed. He asked
Wow.
them all the same 11 questions. And so I think his first question was that question about the book.
Wow.
Um, yeah. Anyway, we've probably gone really far from the question, but yeah.
Then what is one of your books that you've read so far that you would recommend to all the listeners?
Depends. Who are your listeners? What's like the demographic? Who am I talking to?
Demographic 18 to 34.
Cool.
Mainly Australian people, more women based, but still half half. And people who are tentative to being creative, but still live life of curiosity and creativity.
Man, that made it harder as you just explained it.
Then what is one
Oh
book that
man.
you dig the most so far?
I think if I was to recommend one book to read, whew, one book. That's actually really hard. Um, that's really hard. I honestly, right now, like it would have to be Shoe Dog, to be honest. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, like there's a lot of good books out there, but it really depends on the individual and like where they're at in life. Like
Mm,
if they want to read a finance book, or if they don't really know much about finance but they want to learn about it, I'd recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad. If
mm,
they want to learn about leadership, there's there's two really good books on leadership. Number one is 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell.
mm,
And number two, this one talks about leadership, but this talks more so about the journey of a leader, and it's called The Makings of a Leader.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I think right now the Shoe Dog was really enlightening for myself because it helped me to understand like life isn't a straight line, and
mm.
oftentimes the life of a creative isn't a straight line. And I see that in all my friends that are in the creative industry. My girlfriend, she's a session drummer, professional session drummer,
Wow.
and she's had to work in hospitality because gigs have been getting canceled. But
Yeah.
prior to that, she was going to have like gigs in the US. She was going to go on a US tour. She's going to go on a cruise ship tour. Like all of this
Wow.
stuff was like locked in. But now being a creative is like living in poverty, right? Like it's so hard to be
Yeah.
a creative. And the thing about the shoe dog, Phil Knight, was not many people know this, but Phil Knight was like pretty much broke all the way through building his business from 1962 to 1980. He was broke all the way through.
Wow.
Like the number one issue of his business and the number one reason why it kept happening again and again and again is that cash flow and asset problems. Number
Mm,
one, they didn't have enough cash equity inside their bank accounts. As fast as they got cash in, it went out.
mm,
Number one. And then number two, like he didn't build up assets, like he didn't build up equity in his business so that like essentially as much money was coming in, he was paying out his liabilities and like the business was just like straight in and out. It's just a cycle.
yeah.
And it's a really interesting journey of a creative person himself, Phil Knight, going through that creative process and going through like the big zigzag of the world and figuring out like his I guess his value add to the world in spite of all the challenges. So I think it's quite an enlightening book. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Definitely would note it down. And when I have the chance, I'll read it as well. And every time you talk, there's so much wisdom that just flows and wow. But as much as like time has been going, my last question to you would be, is there anything you'd like to leave behind in the lab before you go?
Oh, the lab. Um, wow, that's a tough question. I will go home and think about it more. But if there's one thing I can leave behind today, right now,
Mm,
um, for all the Christians out there who's listening, um, I would say this. Uh, Understand that the calling of discipleship in Christianity is not a token commitment. The the calling is everything. The cost is everything. And if that's confronting, challenge it and dialogue it with friends and your pastors, and really determine like what does it mean to live out the full cost of discipleship. And for everybody else who's maybe thinking about Christianity or like because of this podcast you've like become intrigued by it, I would say explore it and really seek out, you know, are the claims of Christianity true? Um,
mm.
that's that's what I'd like to leave behind.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Easy. That's I need time to digest everything that we've talked about, but wow, thank you so much for being in the lab with us today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Wow. Well, to all who are listening, we thank you so much for tuning in today's podcast. You can find Lab on Instagram at leave it all behind underscore lab. And if you would want to, if you don't mind me, Easy, you can definitely
Yeah.
go check out Easy at Easy Marquez. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Marquez.
Yep.
And yeah, he's a great PT. He's so friendly. If you guys want to have a chat, he has so much wisdom. So go find him. And if you want more information, definitely follow and subscribe on our Instagram. And we have a YouTube channel. So check that out and see you guys all in the next episode.
Peace.
Thank you so much, Easy.
No worries. No worries. That was
Wow.
great.
So good. So much wisdom, man. Wow.
I appreciate it. Man,
Wow.
that was really fun. That's really fun.